Hey everybody, I'm Matt Mosler here from Pine Bluff, and as we're working through this whole series on vision, I've been asked to focus a bit here on how to discover what God is asking you to do in your community. Now, I'm about to tell you the thought process that God took us through in planting this church here in Pine Bluff. Now, God may not be asking you to plant a church where you are, but He is asking you to do something to impact the world around you. Now, how do you know what that is? Because it is something. I mean, Jesus tells us in Acts chapter 1 that you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. That means God has called everybody to use the God who is in you to work through you to impact the world around you, locally, regionally, nationally, globally. The question is, how? Well, that was our sole focus, okay? Back in 2016 when we were considering this move to Pine Bluff. Camille and I had spent so much time in prayer and conversation with others, and we were both convinced that God was calling us to Pine Bluff. I mean, we started having dreams and visions and some kind of spooky confirmation from people we did and didn't know that this is where God wanted us to be. So we knew that. By the way, that is our mission as a church, to help our family and friends become fully devoted followers of Christ, wherever we are, and that extends to the Delta. So how do we do that? Well, first thing we did was you have to get to know your community, okay? Because this is what Jesus did. Great example of this, Zacchaeus, Luke chapter 19. Zacchaeus was a wee little man. He was a tax collector, and he climbed a tree, a sycamore tree, because he heard that Jesus was walking by, and he was a short guy, couldn't see him, and Jesus walks by, sees his brother up in the tree, says, Zacchaeus, come on down there, I gotta go to your house today. Now, why did he do that? Well, he may have been hungry, yeah, but number two, he wanted to get to know Zacchaeus so he could discover the best way to help Zacchaeus become a fully devoted follower of Christ. In other words, we got to talk to people. We got to take people to lunch. We got to go to the mall. We got to go to the gym, find out where people are and what they need. I'll never forget when, not long after we moved here, I went to Walmart, because Walmart is like the center of this town. And I met this lady. She gets out of her car about the same time I do. And I come up to her and I say, hey, how you doing? Fine. Man, isn't it a great day out here? Mm-hmm. Are you from around here? Yeah. But you're not. I said, how do you know that? Because you're talking to me. All right, number one, we got to tackle this division thing. And that became a mission of our church. We told people before we got started on this church, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to look. Our community is 80% black. That's what our church needs to look like. And people came. I'm the only white guy on staff. But I do have a lot of swag, okay? Once you get to know your people, then you can move on to step two, which is you can begin to identify the needs in your community. And one of the things you see Jesus do right after he begins this ministry is he feeds a whole bunch of folks with nothing but a filet of fish Happy Meal, right? There were a lot of hungry folks in Galilee. But then you see him healing people who are sick and making blind people see and making deaf people hear. Why was he doing all of this? Now, one reason was to prove that he was God, but another reason was he's establishing the model that if we can begin to meet people's physical needs, then we earn the right to begin addressing their spiritual needs. But the needs in one community, listen, the needs in one community are not necessarily the needs in another community. And one of the best things about Pastor Rick, and there are a lot of best things about Pastor Rick, but one of the best things is that he's not about creating cookie cutter churches, okay? He knows that each community is different, and what works in Searcy may not work in Fayetteville. What connects in Beebe may not connect in Hot Springs. And for show, what they're doing in West Little Rock ain't gonna work here in Pine Bluff. We are different. In our case, we couldn't do the typical church outreach of feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, and clothing the naked, right? That's become the model for most churches, but this is a dependency culture. If we followed that model, number one, we'd go broke, and number two, we'd make the problem worse. We would feed the beast. Our needs are different, but we still need to meet the physical needs in order to have some spiritual influence. So as Camille and I got out into the community, we identified 3 areas of focus for our church. Number 1, we have to get families back together. Number 2, we have to get people back to work. And number 3, we have to restore hope in our community. And so every service we conduct, every outreach we plan, every activity that we do, this is our focus. Which brings me to number 3. Once you get to know your community and identify the major needs, you have to begin to develop a plan to reach your community. Look, Israel was hungry for a Messiah, and there were a lot of Messiahs walking around Palestine at that time, but Jesus was different. His words were different. They were full of life. They were full of hope. They were full of grace, and they were full of freedom. And he also wasn't afraid to mix it up a little bit. And when talk began to circulate in this community about New Life Church coming here, one of the most often things I heard was, why do we need another church in Pine Bluff? Because we're the 16th most church city in America. We got a lot of churches here. So we needed to be different. We needed to be life-giving. We needed to be hopeful. We needed to be graceful, and we needed to offer freedom. We needed to be a multiracial, multi-generational church. We needed to get heavily involved into our community. We needed to do things that no other church was doing, and we needed to have fun doing it. That was the plan. Now, true confession time. I have no problem coming up with vision, no problem with plans. My problem is execution. How do you put meat on the bone? Well, that brings me to step 4. I'm gonna wrap it up here. You gotta execute the plan. So, if you are loaded with vision, but you're not real strong on how to bring that vision to fruition, what do? Well, you pray a lot, but you also surround yourself with people who know how to get things done. You know, many of us have heard that old saying that if God gives you the vision, he's gonna give you the provision. I'm not really sure where that comes from, but I do know in Philippians 2:13, it says that God works in us both to will and to work for his good pleasure. God, if God has plans for the city, he's going to give you a vision to reach your people wherever you are. He's going to accomplish those plans. What he plans, he accomplishes. This is not just talking about money, it's also talking about people. This is why Jesus surrounded himself with guys who knew how to handle finances. Guys who owned their own businesses. He even threw a zealot in there for fun and for passion, right? We need people around us who not only buy into the vision that we have, but they can bring their gifts and talents and abilities to help us execute that vision. Now, let me caution you here, because that may take a while. And you may have to step out into areas that are uncomfortable, but as you do, you know what's gonna happen? People will see it, and they will get inspired. Now, our first year here, what we did things nobody was doing. We did an Easter egg hunt. We did a fall festival. We did a turkey fry. We even started building houses to give people a chance to own their own homes. Because owning your own home means owning your future. It means owning the future of your kids and your neighborhood and your city. And to date, we've built 6 homes and we got 5 more under construction right now. Nobody was doing those sorts of things when we got here. Now they're all over town, and some churches are doing it a heck of a lot better than we are. And that's awesome. That's amazing, right? Because who cares who gets the credit? Because we're here to give God the glory, right? Now look, God has you right where you are for a reason. And there are people in your community that only you can reach. That's why he's giving you the gifts, talents, and abilities that he has, and the passion to reach them. So get to know your people. Discover what their needs are. Develop a plan to meet those needs, and then step out of the boat. I know it's scary, but it's supposed to be. Because if your dreams don't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough. Don't run from that. You gotta run to that, man, because when you humbly step out into something that's bigger than you, that's when God shows up. And when the God who is in you begins to work through you, that's when you begin to impact your world around you. That is when you discover purpose. Amen? Amen. God bless you.